everybody, and welcome to this week's weekly wrap. It's the 19th of June, 2026, and I have two wonderful gentlemen on the screen joining me today, Anthony Flapper and Mirko Kagura. Anthony, how are you, young man?
Very good, Luke.
That's good, mate. Nice to see you.
It's a
You're looking very
Friday.
dapper. You're looking very dapper in that floral shirt of yours.
Oh, well, you got to lift the standards sometimes in the office.
I'm glad you are, mate. I'm glad you are. And young Mirko, how are you, buddy?
I'm going really well, and wonderful people on the screen. I was actually looking behind my screen and there's like someone over my shoulder just to make sure. Very complimentary of you, Luke. Glad to be here on a Friday, let me tell you.
Well, I'm glad you're here too, and I believe last night you were at the Vinny CEO Sleep Out. You were part of the volunteer committee there, mate. So
yeah, it was a good night, and a fantastic cause. The CEOs do a sleep out. In Melbourne, there would have been about 270 odd people sleeping out, and I know that. In fact, I must share this. There's actually a couple of protesters there, which I find quite hilarious because they're protesting against lack of housing and stuff, which is exactly what these guys are trying to do, raise a couple of $1 million to assist this. So, but well done to all of those guys and to our clients and listeners. Feel free to jump on their website under the Vinny CEO Sleep Out and donate because it's a terrific cause. I see it firsthand.
No, absolutely, mate. Well done, mate. Well, this week I guess markets reminded us that interest rates don't always go down, yeah. And I guess the Australian government themselves were forced to eat a bit of humble pie. We saw Victoria try to implement the work from home legislation. And apparently we've had a peace deal in Iran. It's been a massive week, and it's been a lot going on from that point of view. But probably the most important part is we saw the Aussies beat Turkey in the World Cup, which was extraordinary as well. So given all these points, given there's so much to talk about, Mick, let's go to you first, straight into the markets, and then we can talk about everything else.
Yeah, Luke, good summary there. It certainly has been pretty wild on the markets. And we're actually, coming towards the end of the week in the green, which is nice, but not without a few hiccups. And I'll be cheeky because the Nasdaq's probably the most volatile of those indices, but these are the numbers that I saw over a 4-day trading period: up 3.07, minus 1.15, minus 1.34, up 1.91. Pretty wild, up 2.5% for the week so far. S&P 500 up nearly 1% so far, and the All Ords has been up 1.35. We had a couple of rate decisions both here and in Australia, here in Australia and in the US. We had our rates on hold, the US rates on hold. So markets are sort of reading the fine print. The commentary afterwards, the press conference afterwards, very much pointed at both ends that don't assume that what you thought was going to happen 6 months ago, 9 months ago is a foregone conclusion, and rates could actually go either way depending on what happens, particularly with inflation. I think that the world is really watching what happens with oil prices and how long that trickle effect of inflation continues to bubble through the economy. And a bit like interest rates, it has a significant lagged effect. So I don't think they're keen to make a move soon. And but if you're a betting person, I don't know that you'd be going either up or down at this stage with any confidence.
Yeah, well, look, it's probably been, and Mirko, we've been doing this for a very long time, you and I, in terms of markets and trying to understand what they do. It has been one of the most extraordinary periods this last 12 months, just trying to assess what to do and what not to do, and sometimes being too brave can get you into a lot of trouble, and sometimes not being brave enough can also get you into a lot of troubles. But at this moment, there's a lot of feeling of paralysis in terms of, well, what happens next.
Yeah, no, there certainly is, and I was reading some of the commentary that came out of this 14-point deal that's been a memorandum of understanding, I think it's called, or God knows, they should just call it a non-disclosure agreement that I don't want to know about. Just tell me that things are okay. But one of the things that Donald Trump came out on his social media, and I quote, the markets are loving what is happening with oil prices way down and stocks are way up. We expect a complete ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Israel. he's gone out of his way to mention that, how that markets have actually had a good week and bounced up. That's the only bit of confidence I take is that heading into a midterm elections, this guy actually hangs his hat on market performance. So I sort of see that as if I'm looking for something bright to hang on to, I sort of say he's very keen to make sure that markets continue to bubble along.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree with you more, mate. Couldn't agree with you more. Now, Anthony, and thank you for that, Mirko. Anthony, I'll head over to you now. We saw yesterday a massive back down by the federal government. So it was only just a little under a month ago that the federal government came out with a budget that was going to transform the world, fix up intergenerational wealth inequities, and do all these weird and wonderful things. And the government had a mea culpa moment yesterday after a month of badgering and a month of getting smacked over the head, and there was a touch of humble pie about all this. Want to give us a bit of an update in terms of what happened?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I'm not sure whether it was because Pauline Hanson became the preferred Prime Minister, but effectively, yeah, they've taken some action, and I think they went. Look, we've spoken about it before in terms of the reform probably was required, but the speed at which they implemented and pushed and as hard as it went, it probably needed to be scaled back at some point. So a couple of the key things that they've changed, which is really one of the issues we were talking about earlier, was around trusts. Testamentary trusts have now effectively will be carved out of that 30% tax provision. So effectively where there's a will goes, the money's in the estate can flow through to a testamentary trust, there for the benefit of the beneficiaries. That's effectively been carved out. So the same rules will continue to apply, it is logic, it's smart, and they're not impacting effectively future generations or people that are receiving inheritances via estate. So that makes sense. The other thing is in regards to the small business concessions and regarding the turnover test, which was currently at $2 million. Most people in small business that were trying to get under one of the tests probably weren't meeting that. They've moved that to 10 million to align to, I'm not sure why it aligns to the instant asset write-off, but that's now $10 million turnover test. So effectively it's aligned to that. So there's a potential 50% CGT concession on active business assets. So it's a bit of a chop out. I think they could have went further on this particular issue because, as we've said before, innovation and entrepreneurship is definitely going to be hampered in this country under the current rules. But the other thing that they're doing is effectively what they're calling innovative startups are still available for a 50% CGT discount. Now, that'll be interesting to see what can be put into that bucket. And the variation between what's innovative and what's not. So interesting times. And I think as we move towards another election at some point in time, I think there's more to come.
Yeah, no,
there'll be more of this scale back.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree with you. I'm not sure what your observation was yesterday, but yesterday didn't feel like a massive step back. If anything, it just felt like a bit of window dressing. So, let's clean up around the edges. So it wasn't a pullback of sorts. The government is still very keen on taxation, and particularly around that trust piece. It's very clear that the government doesn't like discretion. So the consequences on family trust will continue. But I think the decision around the testamentary trust and the removal of this death tax argument, I think I do agree with you. I think that was a very good decision by the government, and I think probably the right decision in that regard. I guess from your point of view, Anthony, and just thinking about it out aloud, lawyers would be a little bit disappointed because at one stage there, it looked like virtually everybody in the country had to redraft their wills.
Yeah, well, there's probably that was probably one of the comments coming out of the announcements that they made through the budget, was that lawyers and restructures and everything else was going to be enormous, and accountants will be all they'll be doing for the next 2 years is restructuring. I'm not convinced that that's the case because one, we haven't seen a lot of the specific detail as to what the rollover relief is going to look like. So you can't complete a restructure until you know what the consequences are. So, yeah, but you're right in regards to lawyers and redrafting wills. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it'll be a fairly big change there. The other thing there too on the capital gain side, which I think it is worth mentioning, that move to $10 million, that opens up the avenue for a lot of small businesses. Because it really comes down to your definition of what a small business is now. But just to get that right, Anthony, they talk about small business turnover. Is that revenue? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So you could be an importer or exporter and still be a very small business, but all of a sudden, because your turnover is at 12, 13, 14 million dollars as a result, you don't meet those rules.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So you generally need to get under that or the $6 million asset test, which most people was the $6 million asset test that they were trying to get under, because most people wouldn't have met the $2 million test. It'll now open up that ability for more businesses to potentially access.
Okay. All right. Now that's cool. Well, thanks for the update, mate. I dare say there's going to be a lot more moving in this space. So it's good to see that we're across the detail already. Now, Mirko, Victoria this week, the working from home experiment or the legislation has finally been put into Parliament. And I guess the issue that we've got at the moment is that we're creating two classes of workers from this point of view. And I guess my question to you is this sound policy or is this a vote grabbing exercise?
I can't see this as anything but a vote grabbing exercise. And last night was actually a very good opportunity to chit chat to a couple of CEOs that run businesses, and the common consensus was as follows: people that have never run a business in their lives are now going to tell us how to run our businesses. Fantastic. And this chaos does not actually end here. We're talking about potentially having to put hardware and ergonomic seats and things like that for people, and actually having to facilitate all of this, as opposed to letting people sort of work with their employees to find something that works for everybody and that is suitable for the business. And at this point in time, I think we need to maybe get some sort of budget for cardboard cutouts of people that technically can't do their role from home, but maybe we can just have them here anyway in spirit. It's I'm stunned at this, but Victoria never ceases to amaze me, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, look, I tend to agree with you there. Anthony, given that we've got two types of workers, so we've got the workers who obviously work in offices and, at times could be able to do their jobs from home from that perspective. And then we've got the other people like your tradies, people who work in public service, i.e. AMBOs, firefighters, police officers, nurses, doctors and the like, who, they can't work from home, clearly, from that point of view. What does this do from a compensation perspective? Does that create a whole new minefield?
Well, potentially. It creates a whole range of issues around equity and fairness. But this has been discussed for or they've floated it for a while, and I'm like Mirko, staggered that they've initiated this. And the impact is enormous. Yeah, you're right. What's a paramedic and a tradie? What's their arrangements? Yes, tradie, just sole trader, plumber who potentially says that his home base is home. That's his permanent place of abode, and it's probably where he runs his business from. So as he might always be working from home. So it defies logic. It is. Yeah.
Anthony, I've got a question for you on this front, without notice. I mean, this could raise a whole heap of CGT issues for principal residences as well, all of a sudden. Is that right?
Not if you're an employee, but as I said, for a sole trader who operates from home, that it already exists in terms of CGT implications. But if effectively you need to be carrying on a business for that to have an impact on your principal residence.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nothing more than a vote grab from a government that's out of control and desperate.
Yeah, in a death spiral, Anthony. I think there's a phrase. But look, don't get me wrong. I actually appreciate the political pitch. The need for more flexibility is really important. But I guess the response from businesses alike, and we're one of those businesses as well, is who's paying for this? Because and that becomes a problem, because the reality here is, and you think about the guys at Bunnings, and Bunnings have got a fair argument. if you can now sit at home 2 days a week in tracksuit pants and work from home, why would you go and work at Bunnings on a weekend? What's the incentive there from that point of view? And what's that going to mean? Now we as Australians like to go to Bunnings on the weekend as well. So I don't think this has been thought through properly. And one of the things that really annoys the crap out of me is the fact that we want to encourage innovation. We want to encourage entrepreneurial flair and so on. And one of the things, and the very backbone of this country is small business driving this sort of outcome from that end. When you start telling them what they can do and what they can't do, now don't get me wrong, there's good things to do and bad things to do. And no one should ever do the bad things. But I think the relationship between employer and employee is something that should be negotiated between them. And if flexibility is available, then absolutely flexibility should be allowed, as we allow it from that point of view. But to be actually told by the government and mandated by the government as to what it is we should do, like there's no consideration for training of young people. There's no consideration for the social aspects of work. There's no consideration for actually dealing with face-to-face people from that point of view. And let's not forget here as well, we have an ageing population. The ageing population doesn't want to talk to a chatbot. The ageing population doesn't want to talk to somebody on the phone from another country. They actually want to meet with somebody face to face. And I think what we've got to do is we've got to start remembering what it is we're doing, because for the want of not wanting to offend anybody, guess what? We're offending the older cohort significantly. But it just look. I've got to give Victoria credit, Mirko. I'm a bit like you. Their level of insipidness knows no bounds, and their desperation to get re-elected, hopefully in November, they don't get anywhere near it with a bit of luck. Now, guess what, gentlemen? This week we had a peace deal. Now, I love a peace deal like everybody else, and I think this was iteration number 39 of it. Now, it was all announced on, I think, Sunday night, Trump's birthday, where he actually turned around. The Strait is reopened. Captains of boats, turn on your engines. Oil is free flowing. Let's start moving. But when we got into the detail, and we still don't know what that detail is, it looks like we just have a cease of fighting for 60 days and the Strait has reopened. Are we any better off, Mirko?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I did see some extraordinary numbers and things like that the war in Iran has cost the US like $29 billion so far, and ultimately what we've achieved now is a 60-day kick the can down the road opening of the Strait, which was open before this started in the first place. And the US is now sort of defending themselves pretty adamantly about saying that this 14-point memorandum of understanding, does not offer any payments to Iran and the like, but the concessions being offered, by default actually do offer that. But there's some pretty stern words being spoken, bit of pushback from Israel, and interesting to see some of Vance's commentary as a result of all this. So I really hope for the sake of the world that this peace deal actually sits and continues on, and we can just sort of get on with it, because as we're starting to see, we're only seeing the beginning of the ramifications of the Strait of Hormuz actually being shut down, and it's going to take quite some time to sort of play through. Oil prices did drop substantially very quickly, but that still takes time to represent itself in people's households' budgets.
Absolutely, and look, in credit to Donald Trump for at least. I think at least having the balls, if that's the want of the phrase, for wanting to rectify what is a very real problem. The Iranian government or the Iranian administration is not an administration to sit back and revere and go, they're fantastic. They present more concerns to the world from that point of view and so on, and wanting to eradicate any sort of risks and so on makes perfect sense. That being said, the hodgepodge approach to how this was all handled, and to actually put us into a position where, quite conceivably, we're actually worse off today than what we were on the 27th of February, really makes no sense to anybody. Anthony, I guess from your point of view, we're now starting to see a bit of the oil prices come down from that point. We're starting to see, a bit more relief at the Bowser, which is all nice from that end. I guess if we bring it back to the context of Australian day-to-day business, this is probably a good thing for Australian businesses, but I guess the uncertainty still weighs heavily, yeah?
Well, there's definitely uncertainty because I think that the fuel relief comes off soon, doesn't it?
Yeah.
End of the month.
End of the month.
Yeah. So as much as, we're seeing prices drop at the bows over the last few weeks, I think, give it a couple of weeks. I think we're going to get a bit of a rude shock when that goes back up to levels that we don't want to see. So, look, I think the fact that he's spruiking that it's sorted, the proof's going to be in the pudding. But you're right, from a cost of business, my concern is right for transport and logistics and people with huge fuel bills. What does that look like come 1 July? Because that's a substantial cost. It's just going to re-enter their world, and business has been battling now with the cost of operations and effectively inflation. So there's plenty of pain out there in terms of small business. So I can't see the fuel issue getting any better going forward. We're probably at the best time we are now. Enjoy it for 2 weeks because it's going to get worse.
Yeah, and strongly encouraging our clients, if you've got cars, multiple cars and so on, you definitely want to be filling them up now, and getting close to your full tanks. And if you're still using the old petrol lawnmowers, your jerry cans, you want to fill those up. Don't do what the guys were doing pre this whole thing, colliding and going out and buying, 600 litre drums or whatever from that point of view. Keep it simple. But yeah, I would definitely be benefiting. I think I saw today, even in Kilometre, the petrol price was $1.67. Unheard of.
Gee, that's cheaper than water. Unbelievable.
Well, what's the chances of the government extending the fuel relief?
I reckon pretty good, eh? I reckon pretty good. I reckon they've had a shit month, in truth, and deservedly so. I think the Labor Party was playing politics with the budget, thinking that they were a lot cleverer than what they were, got spanked as a result, and I think they need some good news. So I reckon they might extend it for another 3 months.
I'm with you on that. We don't often agree, but that's, yep.
Yeah, there you go. All right. It has been a massive week. We've seen markets do all types of things. We've seen Kevin Walsh come out, the new federal chair, talk about interest rates from that point of view and give us an indication to the US that they may actually not be coming down, but might actually be going up. So that's caused a bit of consternation in markets. We've seen the peace deal in Iran. We've seen the working from home requirements here in Victoria. So it's been a massive week from that perspective. But more importantly, the World Cup kicked off this week, Marco. And on Sunday would have had to been one of the best days for a very long time from an Australian perspective, with Australia winning 2-0 against Turkey. What an amazing effort by the boys.
I do love a World Cup, and I love the fact that it gets people together, and all of a sudden, the entire country is behind our football team, which is amazing, and just to see those scenes out of Fed Square, which nearly didn't go ahead, at some stage because someone thought it would be a good idea. Just really, really cool to see, and let's hope that we can upset the host, the USA, tomorrow morning. I think 5 a.m. is the kickoff time, yeah. So hopefully we can ruffle a few feathers, because one thing that we were considered was to be the weakest team in that group, and all of a sudden people are looking at Australia very differently, and I think what we saw was the Aussie grit and determination, really at the fore, and never count us off. Yeah, so awesome result. Let's hope we can get the chocolates against the US in the morning.
Oh, absolutely. And look, one of the things I will say, I was lucky enough to be in the Alice Springs over the weekend. And I was sitting in a bar in the Alice, and the Alice has got 39,000 people, and it's a very different type of audience, I will say. And I was sitting in a bar, and one of the great things was when Australia scored that first goal, you had people from multiple backgrounds, very different in their views and so on. But for a few moments there, we were all Australian. and we were all together and we were all cheering and we were all bouncing up and down. And more importantly, when Connor met Cafu, we do know personally, and Connor is a wonderful, wonderful young man, and what a cracking goal that was. But when that second goal went into the back of the net, just the sheer euphoria that I experienced in this little bar, you could imagine was being replicated across the country. And when you hear somebody like a Pauline Hanson who speaks of monoculturalism, of being the same and not being this multicultural society that we are, I call BS on that crap and say, no, let's leave it the way it is, because what I saw for those few minutes was reflective of what this country should be. And it was people coming together of multiple backgrounds, celebrating the fact that we are all Australian and enjoying what was a great moment. Now, Mirko, on a sad note for the World Cup, yesterday our other country that we like to follow, you and I, because we're both of the Croatian background, got beaten by the Poms, which is okay. We're okay with being beaten by the Poms, but that phrase, "it's coming home," is starting to gather a bit of momentum, mate. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, a little bit flat yesterday morning in the wee hours watching that game. But yeah, look, England never failed to disappoint, and at some point in time they'll realise that it's not coming home. I still stand by my prediction on that front, and hopefully the Croats can rebound in game number 2.
Yeah, well, with a bit of luck there, mate. And if your Dutchies, mate, they were they weren't too good this time, were they?
You don't win the World Cup in the first week.
Hey, you know what I do love? I saw reports that Scotland, Scotland's been based out of Boston, and Boston is nearly completely out of beer. One of the Scots who I couldn't actually understand, I needed subtitles, said something to the effect of, "We've had to drink like this Budweiser stuff. What is this? It's not even beer." That's hilarious. I love it.
Oh, you know what, mate? The good news is, and the good news about the World Cup is, as an Essendon supporter, we actually get a little bit of respite at the moment because we don't need to pay attention to what's going on at that club at the moment, which is kind of good. And Anth, your Geelong team didn't do too well last night either, mate.
Oh, we actually competed, unlike you lot.
All right, I've had enough of you. I won't talk to you anymore. All right, well, look, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. Great chat, as always. To our wonderful team out there, thank you, as always, for all your wonderful work. To our clients, get out there, enjoy the World Cup, get up tomorrow morning, make sure you watch those mighty Aussies. Hopefully we can have a lot of fun with the US with a bit of luck, and salute there. Enjoy what I believe will be a fairly cold weekend. I think it's about 14 degrees, so nothing too great. So get out there, enjoy whatever sunshine we do have, stay warm, enjoy the soccer, take care, and we'll see you next week. Cheers, guys.
See you guys.
Yeah.